Hello, I'm Kevin Berger, author of Atheism Untenable. I'm explicitly irreligious and agnostic. I don't need apologetics because there's no need to defend an argument that I don't make, and I can't logically shift the burden of proof for a claim I don't make. If you imply otherwise, you'll remove all doubt that you're intellectually dishonest and have no credibility. This is Justified Nonetheless. Please like, subscribe, share, and ring that notifications bell.
For those of you who may be questioning why this matters so much to me and what business is it of yours, a few years ago, I was working as a client care specialist on the crisis unit of a mental health facility with patients who were homicidal, suicidal, or gravely disabled. The admissions process for this unit included a strip search to ensure that the individual was not bringing anything onto the unit that could be used to harm themselves or others. There was a clear policy in place. Male staff members could not conduct strip searches on female patients, and for good reason. These were emotionally charged situations involving people who were already under duress, many of whom had experienced serious trauma, including sexual abuse. I have a friend, a trans woman, whose name I won't reveal both for confidentiality and because I care too much about her to share more than what she's permitted, and she had been sexually abused earlier in life. Something had triggered her. She'd engaged in self-harming behavior, and there was real concern that she might escalate further. She needed to be admitted. She needed help. She needed safety. Here's the problem. If the definitions of man and woman are so elastic that they cannot exclude anyone, if a man is anyone who identifies as a man and a woman is anyone who identifies as a woman, if we take everyone's word for it, so the single determining factor is the expression itself of the words I am, which we know is independent of the underlying identity, if all challenges to gender expression are characterized as bigotry, transphobia, and violence, then how do you intend to protect my friend or any woman, cis or trans, from bad faith actors? Because if you can't or won't do that, you clearly don't care about people as much as you pretend that you do. Arden Hart, a trans woman herself, of all people, articulated my issue perfectly.
I want people to live in whatever way they feel comfortable. If that's a man wearing a dress who says they're a man, great. If that's a person who is assigned male saying, actually, I think I'm a woman, and maybe they work on cars and they're covered in mud all the time, cool, live your best life. I'm not here to police who you are because I don't have access to the contents of your mind to be able to tell for sure whether or not you're really gay or really straight or really trans or whatever.
Arden is admitting that gender claims are unfalsifiable. That's exactly what she means when she says, I don't have access to the content of your mind to tell for sure. There is no way to tell for sure, and that is the issue that I am raising. Why should we blindly accept gender claims? How is this justified? There's a material, meaningful, and significant difference between deference due to social courtesy and epistemic justification. As I have repeatedly said, I am perfectly willing to use preferred pronouns and chosen names in the same way that I use titles and nicknames. However, when one asserts, I am a woman or I am a man, therefore I am entitled to X and you must do Y, no, I refuse to affirm that and acquiesce. I will affirm your dignity. That's where the line must be drawn. This is no different than me addressing someone as doctor, referring to someone as a teacher, or calling someone tiny. When it comes to actually performing medicine, actually teaching in a classroom, or signing any sort of binding agreement, that's not good enough. The person has to actually demonstrate that they are a doctor, or that they are a teacher, or sign using their legal name. Social deference due to courtesy versus epistemic justification. Context matters. And before anyone whines and says, well, do you demand someone prove that they're happy when they tell you that they're happy? The answer to that is, as soon as people start trying to legislate and dictate public policy based on a certain mood, yes, I will need some kind of evidence for that, because that's how actual, legitimate skepticism and epistemic justification works. Here's another way to look at it. Inverse Mariology. Mariology is the concept of metaphysics that concerns itself with the relationship between wholes and parts. Essentially, according to Mariology, premise 1, an entity is equal to the sum of its parts. If this is understood to be true, then it logically follows that an entity minus all of its constituent parts equals nothing. This means that an entity only has semantic value if the set contains at least one referent. This is a tautology. It's always true. Now, let's see how this applies to gender. Let the entity in question equal gender identity as an internal, self-declared essence. The constituent parts are appearance, behavior, biology, physiology, psychology, neurology, sex, sexuality. If all of the constituent parts are non-definitional to gender, i.e. if none are necessary or sufficient conditions, then removing all of these parts still allegedly leaves gender intact. But this results in the entity being nothing, because there is no remainder that can be externally referenced, tested, or even described. It's an empty set masquerading as a category. In plain language, premise 1, a coherent identity category requires some definitional reference, observable or conceptual components that distinguish it from other categories. Premise 2, modern gender ideology defines gender identity as independent from all observable, testable, or referential parts. For example, appearance, behavior, biology, physiology, psychology, neurology, sex, or sexuality. Premise 3, if all referent parts are excluded from a category's definition, then the category is indistinguishable from the empty set. Conclusion, therefore, gender ideology, as identified by modern gender ideology, collapses into an empty set and is not a coherent identity category. For gender to be a meaningful category of E, the set of constituent properties must contain something, but everything has been rejected. To it, gender is asserted to be a social construct, but what is a social construct if not expression? For example, appearance, behavior, and declaration, two of which are explicitly denied as stereotypes, and the last of which is conceded as independent of gender identity itself. I am a gender non-cognitivist because there's nothing left to affirm aside from the utterance. Yep, you definitely said the words. Check this out. I am a man. I am a woman. How strange. I just said the words too. It's almost as if saying the words alone doesn't prove anything besides having said the words. Of course, that wouldn't make any difference if all you wanted was for people to affirm the utterance, but you want them to affirm the underlying identity. Based on what exactly? What evidence could possibly justify that affirmation? Consider the claim, I'm an athlete. But with the term athlete divorced from every sport, physical activity, training regimen, competitive framework, bodily condition, or skill. The claim, I am an athlete, is then semantically null. In the same way, and for the same reason, if gender is divorced from all reference, it has no semantic content. Thus, if the LGBTQIA+ community advocates wants the term man and woman to retain any meaning at all, they must stipulate at least one referent. Biological, psychological, functional, cultural, whatever. Otherwise, the terms are semantically inert. Hence, the burning question that no one within the community seems to want to answer with regard to the terms man and woman. What do you mean by that? No, I'm not going to provide any definitions. I want yours. Alex O'Connor said of free will,
Now, the first issue that we have to face is, of course, the definition of free will. And since when I'm debating this, I'm the one who's denying the existence of something that someone else believes in, it really needs to be that someone else's definition that I'm using.
The same idea applies here. As they are the ones disputing usage, I am not merely deferring to their usage as a matter of courtesy, I'm epistemically committed to it. They are committed to providing it. Again, to be absolutely clear, this isn't bigotry, transphobia, oppression, violence, biological essentialism, or prescriptivism. I am explicitly saying that I am willing to use preferred pronouns and chosen names. I'm willing to use whatever definitions for man and woman that the LGBTQ plus IA community stipulates. However, I do insist that 1, they actually do stipulate a definition, 2, that the definition be falsifiable, and 3, that the definition for woman excludes me, a cis male. This is a call for semantic accountability. If a term is going to carry normative force, it must have referential content. Otherwise, it's not a category at all. It's a gesture. And that gesture isn't based on anything but vibes. Now, about 2 weeks ago, I sent a copy of my book, Debating Dillahunty, Transgenderism, and the Unfalsifiability of Identity, to Matt Dillahunty. I have yet to hear a response, so I sent him a tweet, and I also emailed him and tagged him in this video. We'll see if I can get a response from him that way. Until next time, remember, even if your beliefs aren't necessarily true, they may be justified nonetheless.